morning to all of you. Today we will have an introductory lecture about the wildlife. When we talk about wildlife, one of the first things that comes to our mind is the pictures of the charismatic megavertebrates, large mammals like the elephant or the tiger or the lion or the rhinoceros and the like. But wildlife does not just include large mammals alone. It includes a wide variety of life on the face of earth. Let's examine a couple of definitions on wildlife. According to the Wildlife Protection Act of the 1972, wildlife include any animal, aquatic or land, and vegetation which forms part of any habitat. So, according to that definition, both the plants as well as all forms of animals are comprehended or included under the wildlife. Or it can be simplistically said that any uncultivated flora and undomesticated animals, or in other words, anything that exists in the wild, in the native habitat, can be considered as wildlife. So we have seen the life. Now we will try to see some of the distinguishing features of the living organisms. All the living organisms has a size and a shape. It all composed of a particular chemical composition known as protoplasm. All the living organisms do grow. They all perform metabolic activities such as anabolism or catabolism. All the living creatures, they respond to stimuli, which is referred to as irritability, and all the living creatures do reproduce and thereby ensure the continuity or the perpetuity of their forms. So these are all unique characteristic features of all the living organisms. Let's briefly have a look at the taxonomy and the nomenclature on the organisms. It's estimated that more than 2 million species and another 12,000 species of fossils known from the face of earth, and as we have seen, it is estimated that there are between 3 to 10 million species which are yet to be described, and thousands of species have been added to the list every year. The systematic classification of the organism was first attempted by Aristotle between 384 and 322 BC. Following that, John Ray, who did a more systematic approach to the classification between 1627 to 1705. However, the most acceptable classification which is followed even now is the one that is proposed by Carl Linnaeus between 1707 to 1778, and in his classical publication called as Systema Naturae, which has really the basic of all the classification and the taxonomical system that is followed as of now. One of the speciality of the Linnaean system of classification is a hierarchical system of classification that was proposed by him, which sees the organism at the lowest level as a species, and several similar looking species constituting the genus, several similar looking genus constituting the family, several similar looking families constituting the order, and then the class, the phyla, and ultimately the kingdom. So these are how the hierarchy of the classification has been decided or proposed by Linnaeus, and it's being followed even now. And this scheme of arranging organism into an ascending series of groups of ever increasing inclusiveness is referred to as hierarchical system of classification. And each of the levels of this hierarchical system of classification is referred to as taxon, the plural of which is taxa. So there are 7 taxa under the hierarchical system of classification that is proposed by Linnaeus. Each of these taxa taxon can further be subdivided using the prefixes super or sub. So for example, we have the subspecies or the subgenus or the superfamily and the subfamily and the like. However, the basic structure remains as the same as the 7 taxa. Another characteristic of the Linnaean system of classification is a binomial nomenclature, which means that any species consists of 2 forms, like the first form making the generic name and the second form making the species name. And there are certain rules under which a biological name is to be written. The genus name, the first letter of the genus name has to be a capital letter, and all other letters including the species name should be small letters. And the biological name or the scientific name either should be italicized or should be underlined. Now, the whole organisms of the world have been categorized into 5 kingdoms by Whitaker in the year of 1969. And the 5 kingdoms of organisms are the Monera, which include the prokaryotic organisms, the Protista, which include the protozoan and the eukaryotic algae, the fungi, which include the fungus, which are the saprophytic organisms, the plantae, which include the plants, which are the autotrophic organisms, which can make the food by themselves, and the kingdom Animalia, which include the animals, which are basically the heterotrophic organisms. So let's see some of the salient differences between the plants and the animals. One of the most important differences is that the plants has cell wall, the plant cell has cell wall, whereas animal cell lack a cell wall. Instead, the outermost membrane of the cell of the animal cell is referred as a plasma membrane. The nutrition in the case of the plant is autotrophic, whereas the animal it is heterotrophic. Plants are unable to move, or the locomotion is restrictive or not possible in the case of plants, whereas it's not so in the case of animals. They are able to move. The growth is confined to the meristems in the case of plants, whereas the growth takes place throughout the body in the case of animals. The sensitivity is controlled by hormones and the nervous system in the case of animals, whereas it's not so in the case of plants. Animals also has perfect organ system mechanisms such as the digestive system, the respiratory system and the excretory system, whereas it is lacking in the case of plants. The surface area to volume ratio is higher in the case of plants, whereas it's lower in the case of animals, which make the animals, or which gives the animals more compact body structure. Now, under the kingdom Animalia, there are different phyla, such as the coelentrates, the platyhelminthes, the nematodes, the annelids, the arthropods, the mollusks, the echinoderms and the chordates. And we are going to focus more onto the chordates. The phylum Chordata is characterized by features such as bilateral symmetry, the presence of notochord, single dorsal tubular nerve cord, pharyngeal gill slits, postnatal tail, ventral heart with dorsal and ventral blood vessel, complex digestive system, exoskeleton seen in some vertebrates, a cartilage or bony endoskeleton present in majority of the members. So these are certain characteristic features of the phylum Chordata. Now the phylum Chordata is further classified into different subphyla such as the Urochordata, the Cephalochordata and Vertebrata or Craniata, of which the Urochordates and Cephalochordates are together known as Protochords or Acraniata, whereas the Vertebrata is also referred to as Craniata. Now coming to the classes under the subphylum Vertebrata. So the classes under the Vertebrata include, there are actually 5 classes, like the pisces, which include the fishes, the amphibians, the reptiles, aves or the birds, and the mammals. Those are the 5 classes under the subphylum Vertebrata. Now our interest in this lecture is on the mammals, so we will see some of the characteristic features of the class Mammalia. The mammals are characterized by the presence of hair all over the body, or the body is covered with hairs. They possess integument with sweat, scent, sebaceous and mammary glands, of which the presence of the mammary gland is the one that gives a name to the class Mammalia, the presence of mammary glands. The mouth with diaphyodont teeth, which means the mammals possess 2 sets of teeth, first the milk tooth and then the permanent set of tooth, which is characteristic for the mammals. The movable eyelids and the fleshy external ears or the pinnae is another character of mammals. The RBC is biconcave and non-nucleated, which is also characteristic to the class Mammalia. And another characteristic feature of Mammalia is the presence of diaphragm or the muscular partition.